Are you kidding me? There's no way my sensible wife just spent 200 grand on one of her students. I was sinking into a plush leather sofa in the reception area of the Porsche dealership. My fingers tapped an unconscious, intermittent rhythm on my knee as I waited for the salesman to pull the spec sheet for a top-of-the-line model. The showroom was quiet, save for the low murmur of another sales pitch and the faint hum of a printer in the distance. With nothing better to do, I pulled out my phone, my thumb gliding aimlessly over the smooth glass. The news feed was the usual clutter of useless headlines and targeted ads, but one link jumped out. Northwood University Commencement Ceremony. Live now. Well, that's interesting. Northwood University. That's where my wife, Sophia, was a professor. When she left this morning, she'd put on the cream-colored trench coat I bought her, mentioning she was a faculty representative at the graduation ceremony. She said it would be a long day, and she'd probably be home late. Then she leaned in and gave me a quick kiss on the cheek. On impulse, my finger tapped the link. The live stream flickered to life. Students in black academic gowns were like a flock of joyful birds, their faces beaming as they tossed their mortarboards into the blue sky. The energy of their youth practically burst through the screen. The camera panned across the faculty section, and I spotted Sophia almost immediately. She sat in the front row, dressed in formal academic regalia, the deep blue satin trim making her skin look even more luminous. Her makeup was perfect, her hair swept back in an elegant, flawless bun. She was leaning slightly, whispering something to an older professor beside her, a polite, graceful smile playing on her lips. A smile unconsciously formed on my own face. My Sophia, no matter where she was, she always stood out, brilliant, elegant, and poised. Her professional success had always been a source of pride for me. Just then, the camera, likely hunting for more of those touching Minterminty moments, shifted toward the crowd of people taking photos on the lawn. Suddenly, a familiar figure was nudged into the center of the frame by a few students. It was Sophia. She looked a little bashful, waving them off, but the smile on her face widened. Then, a tall young man squeezed next to her with a sudden, almost reckless movement. With a familiarity that felt more like a boastful claim, he wrapped his arm tightly around hers, pressing his body close, almost leaning on her. He flashed a huge grin at the camera and threw up an exaggerated peace sign. Sophia's body went rigid for a split second at the unexpected intimacy. The smile on her face froze, a flicker of what looked like shock. Or was it embarrassment, flashing in her eyes? But it was gone in an instant. Her smile returned, looking completely natural. She even tilted her head toward him, as if this kind of casual affection was something she was used to. My own smile froze on my face. The tapping of my fingers stopped. What the hell was that? Did I just stumble into my own train wreck? I knew the kid, Liam Foster, the star student in Sophia's graduating class. He'd been to our house twice, once to drop off a Christmas gift, the other time to supposedly ask for advice on a project. He was a smooth talker with a sunny smile, who would pepper me with questions about real-world experience and investment strategies. Sophia had praised him to me more than once, calling him smart, driven, and full of potential. She'd mentioned his family didn't have much, which made his ambition all the more impressive. He was, she'd said, her prize student. The camera moved on, the moment gone as quickly as it came. But the image was burned into my mind, replaying on a loop, his hand gripping her arm, his body pressed against hers, her momentary stiffness followed by that seamless, practiced smile. "Sir, sorry for the wait. Is this configuration to your liking?" The salesman's cheerful voice cut through my thoughts. He was holding a thick brochure. I snapped back to reality, taking a deep breath, trying to dismiss what I'd seen as nothing more than graduation day excitement, the kind of casual boundary crossing that young people don't think twice about. "It's fine," I heard myself say, my voice a little dry. My thumb, however, had already closed the live stream. The screen went dark. The salesman, probably sensing my mood shift or maybe just trying to fill the awkward silence, leaned in a little. His eyes happened to glance at my phone screen, which I hadn't locked yet. It was frozen on a still from the broadcast, Liam with his arm locked around Sophia's, both of them smiling for the camera. "Hey," the salesman said, a spark of recognition in his voice. He pointed at Liam on the screen. "I know that guy." My heart gave a hard thump. A terrible, creeping sense of dread took hold of me. I slowly turned to look at him. Seeing my confused expression, he explained, "Yeah, definitely him. He was in here about a month ago, bought a car. I remember him specifically." I pointed to Sophia's face on the screen and asked, my voice dangerously steady, "Are you sure that she was with him when he came?" "Absolutely," the salesman said, his tone certain. "A woman with her class, and the way she handled the payment? Impossible to forget. She paid in full for this year's new 911 Carrera S, top trim. With all the options, it came out to over $200,000. She signed the papers and handled the entire transaction herself. There's no way I'm mistaken." He paused, a look of pure, professional admiration on his face. "That guy in the picture must be her husband, right? Well, lucky guy." I remember hearing her tell the manager the car was a surprise graduation gift for her husband. So generous and thoughtful. Makes you jealous, doesn't it? Wow, my world tilted on its axis. A $200,000 sports car. A surprise graduation gift. For her husband. Her husband. Isn't that me? Every word the salesman spoke was like a small, sharp blade twisting in my chest. I'd built my company from nothing, navigated the cutthroat business world for 15 years. I thought I'd seen it all, dodged every trap, and mastered the art of keeping a poker face. But in that moment, it took every ounce of my self-control not to leap to my feet or do something I'd regret. Sir, are you okay?" The salesman finally noticed something was wrong. He looked at my face with concern. "You've gone completely pale. Are you feeling all right? Can I get you a glass of water?" I raised a hand, the motion stiff. "No, I'm fine. Just feeling a little off." I clear my throat, trying to keep my voice even. "I'll take the spec sheet. I need to think it over. I'll be in touch." Then, I pushed myself up from the too-soft sofa and walked out of the dealership, the cold, glossy brochure clutched in my hand. The moment I shut the door of my Mercedes S-Class, the world outside fell silent. This car had been with me for years. I bought it when my company hit a major milestone. Sophia was with me when I picked it out. She'd looped her arm through mine, her eyes sparkling. "Honey, this is it," she'd said. "This car will be with us as our life gets better and better." Sophia. She was with me when I had nothing, when I was just a broke kid fresh out of college. She stood by me, even when her family disapproved of our marriage. When I was starting my business, she was there in our tiny, cramped apartment. When I hit rock bottom, she was the one who picked me up. And when I finally started succeeding, she was the one who reminded me to stay humble. My mind was a chaotic storm of fragmented images and sounds. Liam Foster's young, handsome face with that ingratiating, sunny smile. Sophia, sitting on our sofa at home, her eyes full of genuine admiration as she talked about her prize student, praising his spark, his work ethic, his unlimited potential. The salesman's confident voice, $200,000 sports car, surprise gift, her husband. And finally, the image from the live stream. Liam's hand clamped on Sophia's arm, her fleeting stiffness, and a smile that snapped back into place a moment too late. I needed to be sure. One last chance for her, and for the ridiculous sliver of hope I was still clinging to. My hand trembled as I fumbled for my phone. It took me 3 tries to unlock it. I found Sophia's contact and hit call. The phone rang for a long time before she picked up. The background was a cacophony of celebration. I could hear the cheerful strains of the graduation march. She was clearly still at the ceremony, wrapped up in the excitement. "Hey, honey." Her voice came through, bright and happy. She was in a great mood. "What's up?" "I'm still swamped here. The students are all pulling me aside for pictures." I dug the nails of my free hand into my thigh, the sharp pain a grounding force to keep my voice steady. I even managed to inject a note of casual complaint into my tone. "Hey, babe, nothing major. I was just thinking my car is feeling a little dated. I'm thinking about upgrading." I paused, pretending to consider it. "What do you think our budget should be? I've looked at a few places, wanted to get your opinion." The noise on her end seemed to quiet, as if she'd covered the receiver with her hand. Then, her voice came back, light, dismissive, and patronizing. "A new car," she laughed, a breezy sound, as if I were a child asking for a toy. "Ethan, it's just a way to get from A to B. Yours is perfectly fine. It's an S-Class, it's only a few years old, and there's nothing wrong with it. We need to be practical with our money, you know? There's no need to buy something new just to keep up with the trends. I held the phone, speechless. Before today, I might have agreed with her. But now, knowing she had used our money to buy a $200,000 car for some kid, her words were like acid in my ear. Practical, a waste of money, keeping up with trends? Then what was the Porsche 911, registered in Liam Foster's name, that she called a gift for her husband? I said nothing. Hello? Ethan, are you still there? She didn't seem to notice my dead silence. Or maybe she just didn't care. I'm seriously swamped here. The students are calling me again. I'll have to call you back. We can talk tonight. Before I could respond, the line went dead. Beep, beep, beep. I sat frozen in the driver's seat, the phone still pressed to my ear. Betrayal. A raw, blatant betrayal wrapped in lies and deceit. The woman I had given my heart to, the woman I had provided for with more than a decade of hard work, was using my money behind my back to buy luxury cars for her young lover, playing the role of the generous, supportive goddess. And me, her legal husband, I get shot down for even suggesting a new car, branded as wasteful, impractical, and vain. Sophia, Liam, you two are something else. You really are. I lower the phone. Without a moment's hesitation, I unlocked it again and did some digging. It wasn't hard to find Liam Foster's social media accounts. I knew his name, his university, his major, even the general area he was from. His Instagram was a textbook example of a young man desperate for attention. His most recent post was from 3 days ago, a 9-photo grid. In the center photo, he was leaning against a brand-new electric blue Porsche 911, a massive, triumphant grin on his face. The dazzling color, the aggressive styling. It was the exact model the salesman had described. Other photos were close-ups of the plush red and black leather interior, the futuristic Matrix headlights, and a selfie of him at the wheel, staring thoughtfully into the distance. The caption read, "Graduation gift, secured. Thank you to my goddess. We're just getting started." I had to admit the kid had game. He'd managed to turn my once gentle, sensible wife into this. He'd convinced the woman who used to lecture me about how every dollar has to count to drop a fortune on a car for him. Dozens of comments from his friends were already rolling in. "Dude, Liam, that's insane. That car is sick. Your goddess is the GOAT. So jealous. Living the dream, man. Hook a brother up with her number. When are you taking us for a spin?" I stared at the photos, at the sickeningly sweet goddess, and the heart emojis, at the clueless fawning in the comments. A strange, bitter smile spread across my face. I don't know why I was smiling. Maybe it was the pain. My finger hovered over the screen for a moment. Then, I typed out a comment of my own. "Nice car. Hope you can afford the upkeep after you're done with someone else's wife." I hit send. Then I tossed the phone onto the passenger seat and started the engine. I didn't go home. Instead, I turned the car around and drove to the other side of the city, to the penthouse I own near my office. It was more of a crash pad, decorated in a cold, minimalist gray. An island of solitude. It was the perfect place to think. I knew my comment would be a stone tossed into a still pond, guaranteed to make waves, maybe even a tidal wave. I didn't care about tipping them off. In fact, that was the point. I wanted Sophia and her boy toy to know that I knew. Panic makes people sloppy, and their mistakes would be my ammunition. As expected, it didn't take long. Less than an hour later, the phone on the passenger seat began vibrating violently, the screen lighting up again and again. The name Sophia flashed on the screen. The contact name I once thought I would see for the rest of my life. I let it ring, the sound echoing in the confined space of the apartment until it went to voicemail. 3 seconds of silence, and it started again, and again, and again. The frantic repetition screamed of her mounting panic. I calmly unbuttoned my collar, took off my suit jacket, and walked to the island in the open-plan kitchen. I ground some beans and brewed myself a black coffee. Cup in hand, I walked to the floor-to-ceiling windows and watched dusk swallow the city below. Only when the phone rang for the 7th time did I walk over and answer it. Before she could speak, I cut in, my voice deliberately tired and detached, as if I were handling a business matter. I was on an important video call, my phone was on silent. "What's up? Why all the urgent calls?" On the other end, Sophia's voice was sharp and breathless, stripped of its usual gentle calm. It was practically a shriek. "Ethan, are you insane? What the hell was that? Why did you go on Liam's Instagram and post that garbage? Delete it. Delete it right now. Oh, that, I said, taking a sip of the scalding coffee. The bitterness flooded my tongue. My tone was as placid as if I were discussing the weather. I just saw it on my feed and left the comment. It's a nice car. Suits him. I was just congratulating him on his graduation. As someone with more experience, I thought I'd offer a little unsolicited life advice about a young man's future. Was I wrong? I even added a hint of innocent confusion to my voice. You're being completely irrational. You're sick, she sputtered, her voice trembling with rage. He's a promising student I've been mentoring. His family has financial difficulties, but he's brilliant and has incredible character. As his professor, I used funds from my department's research grant and some outside academic sponsorships to help him out, to reward him for graduating with honors and give him a good start in life. What is wrong with that? How can you have such a filthy mind? What kind of person do you think I am? Research grants? Academic sponsorships? It was a well-crafted lie, I'll give her that. The motive was so noble, so full of academic integrity. I almost wanted to applaud her quick thinking. Is that so? I said, smiling faintly at the city lights beginning to glitter outside. Well, in that case, it seems I misunderstood your selfless dedication to your students. I put a deliberate emphasis on those words. So why are you so upset? If your conscience is clear, you have nothing to worry about. Or are you worried about what other people, specifically what I might think? My calm, sarcastic question seemed to catch her off guard. She paused. Then her tone shifted dramatically into one of deep, wounded grievance. Her voice cracked, turning into a sob. Ethan, do you have any idea how humiliating this is for me? My colleagues, my students, everyone saw it. How am I supposed to face anyone at the university now? How can I hold my head up? You need to delete that comment immediately, and then you have to post a public apology. Say your account was hacked. Humiliating. I repeated the word, staring at my own cold reflection in the glass. My voice dropped. Maybe, but delete the comment. Apologize. I paused, then said each word with crystal clarity. Not going to happen. You know me better than that. I don't back down when I know I'm right. Ethan, you bastard, you. I didn't give her a chance to finish. I ended the call and then held down the power button until the screen went black. Silence. The world was blessedly quiet. Her reaction was a textbook confirmation of my suspicions. First, panicked rage. Then, a desperate lie to cover her tracks, trying to use her career as a shield. And finally, an emotional demand that I fix the problem I had created. It was the standard playbook of a guilty person caught in the act. How had she become this person? The woman I married was so full of grace and integrity. For the next few days, I stayed at the penthouse, telling her an urgent issue with an overseas project required my undivided attention. Sophia tried to find me at the office, but I'd already instructed the front desk and security to turn away all personal visitors, citing a critical closed-door meeting. She was politely but firmly denied entry. Her texts and iMessages flooded my phone, a relentless barrage that shifted from furious accusations to pleading justifications, and finally to desperate threats. I read through them once, calmly. The pathetic words offered nothing but more proof of her guilt and panic. They stirred nothing in me. I never replied. My silence was like a tightening vice, clearly amplifying her fear. But her feelings were no longer my concern. My mind was focused on one thing, a plan. I mobilized my resources. First, my legal team, 3 of the sharpest corporate and divorce attorneys in the city. They were known for their efficiency, discretion, and ruthlessness. I gave them the rundown, omitting the emotional details and focusing on the core issue. My spouse was misappropriating marital assets. My objective was simple. I wanted her out of my life with nothing. Their first directive was to begin a quiet but comprehensive audit of all our shared property, joint account statements, her personal credit card transactions, investment portfolios, and any other hidden assets she might have. I needed to know where every single dollar went. At the same time, I reached out through a trusted intermediary to a private investigation firm I'd worked with before. They were discreet, thorough, and operated comfortably in the gray areas of the law. My instructions to them were more direct. Dig up everything on Liam Foster. His family background, his social circles, a full breakdown of his bank accounts, looking for any large, recent deposits. And I told them spare no expense in gathering any and all evidence of an inappropriate relationship with Sophia. Photos, videos, recordings, travel records showing them in the same place at the same time. Everything. Money talks, especially when you know exactly what you want and you're willing to pay a premium for it. The results came back with terrifying speed. A week later, 2 preliminary reports landed on my desk in the penthouse. The lawyer's report was dense with financial jargon, but the conclusion was brutally clear. Over the past 6 months, and particularly in the last 3, sums totaling over $300,000 have been systematically siphoned from a joint investment account Sophia managed, as well as from a high-limit credit card in her name on my account. The withdrawals were disguised under plausible expenses like academic research, data procurement, and conference travel. It wasn't a brilliant scheme, but it exploited the fact that I was too busy running my company to micromanage our household finances. The P.I.S. report was far more visceral. Liam Foster's family was working class, from a small, struggling town in the Rust Belt. His parents were laid-off factory workers. Yet in the months leading up to his graduation, his spending had skyrocketed. Not only had he acquired the Porsche, but he was photographed at high-end restaurants and purchasing luxury watches and designer clothes far beyond his means. The smoking gun was a copy of his bank statement. A week before the car was purchased, a wire transfer for exactly $210,000 had been deposited into his account from an offshore shell corporation, one that the investigators had discreetly linked back to Sophia. The memo on the wire transfer read, "Consulting fee." The report also included a portfolio of photos and a short video clip. There was nothing explicit, but the images told their own story. Sophia and Liam in deep conversation outside a private club, the two of them entering an exclusive Japanese restaurant, and on multiple occasions, the two of them entering the same private, high-security condo building late at night, on dates that perfectly coincided with the nights she had told me she was working late at the lab, mentoring students, or at a faculty dinner. I looked at the photos of Sophia, smiling at Liam, a genuine, unguarded smile I hadn't seen directed at me in a very long time. I saw the expensive watch on Liam's wrist, the men's version of a limited edition timepiece I had given Sophia for our anniversary. The grief I should have felt was gone. The anger and pain had been replaced by a cold, surgical calm and an impatient desire to see this through to the end. Sophia, you didn't just betray our marriage. You took the wealth we built together and used it to bankroll a greedy, vain parasite. You made me feel like the biggest fool in the world. I arranged to meet Sophia at a private, members-only cafe in the city center. The place was my choice, discreet, quiet, with booths separated by high partitions to ensure privacy. It was the perfect venue for a final negotiation, or, more accurately, a final notice. She arrived looking like she'd spent hours getting ready. She wore the little black dress I'd bought her last year and the pearl earrings I'd won for her at an auction. Her hair was freshly styled. She was trying to project an image of control, to salvage some of the dignity she had left. But the dark circles under her eyes, which no amount of concealer could hide, and the anxious tension in her brow gave her away. I had arrived early and was already finishing an espresso. I watched as she slid into the chair opposite me, her movements almost timid. "Ethan," she began, her voice already thick with a rehearsed, tearful emotion. Her eyes reddened on cue. It was an impressive performance, but I had built a billion-dollar company from scratch. I knew how to read people. "You haven't been home. You won't answer my calls or texts. I know I was harsh the other day, and I shouldn't have said those things. But there's nothing going on with Liam. It's a professional relationship. That's all. Please, you have to believe me. After all these years together, are you really going to let one stupid misunderstanding tear us apart? We could go back to how things were." I held up my hand, a clear, cold gesture that cut her off mid-sentence. "Sophia, let's not waste time. We both know what's been going on," I said, my voice as flat and emotionless as if I were reading a quarterly report. "I didn't ask you here to listen to your excuses. It's too late for explanations. I'm no longer interested." She stared at me, her eyes wide with shock. My unprecedented coldness had clearly rattled her. The script she had prepared was useless now. "Then, why?" she whispered, her voice trembling. "I'm here to inform you of a few things," I said, leaning forward slightly. My gaze was locked on her face, which was rapidly losing its color. First, as of this morning, my lawyers have filed for divorce, citing irreconcilable differences. Of course, I added, I'm also in possession of substantial evidence proving fault on your part, including but not limited to financial records detailing the misappropriation of marital assets and documentation of your inappropriate relationship with another individual. If you'd like to contest this and make it a public spectacle, I have no problem submitting this evidence in court. Her face turned sheet white. Her lips trembled uncontrollably, and her hands clenched the fabric of her dress so tightly her knuckles were bloodless. She was speechless. Second, I continued, my voice steady, ignoring the way she swayed in her seat. Given your recent and highly irregular financial activities, my lawyers have also petitioned the court to freeze all our joint assets to prevent any further transfer of funds. I paused, letting the words sink in before delivering the final blow. And yes, that includes the car registered in his name. Its source of funding is fully documented. It is considered an illegal gift purchased with marital assets. We will be suing to recover its full value, and that debt will be assigned to you. Third, my voice remained flat, but each word was a hammer blow. By tomorrow morning at the latest, the Board of Trustees and the Ethics Committee at Northwood University will receive a formal, detailed, and anonymous complaint regarding your misuse of research funds and your grossly unprofessional relationship with a graduate student under your supervision. I've included copies of some of the corroborating evidence. Whether you get to keep your job and what's left of your academic reputation will be up to them. I finished and leaned back, watching her. Her expression shifted from shock to horror, and then twisted into a mask of hysterical rage. "Ethan, you bastard! You monster!" she shrieked, bolting to her feet. Her body shook with fury, and her voice was so shrill it turned heads at the other end of the cafe. "How could you do this to me? How could you be so cruel? Are you trying to destroy me? That money was mine, too. I earned it. I had a right to spend it. How dare you freeze my accounts? How dare you report me? You've ruined me. You've ruined everything," she screamed, tears finally breaking free and carving black streaks through her makeup. "You earned it." I let out a soft, humorless laugh. "Sophia, do I need to remind you, without the seed money and the network of contacts I provided, without the prestige that being Mrs. Hayes gave you, how much funding do you think your little research lab would have secured on its own?" I leaned in again, my voice low but sharp. "As for your rights, the law will make it very clear to you what rights you actually have." It was as if all the air had been sucked out of her. She collapsed back into the chair, sobbing. Why? Why are you being so vicious after all these years? Even if I made a mistake, you can't." I stood up and picked up my suit jacket. I gave her one last look. "You should be asking him that question. Or maybe you should be asking yourself." And as for vicious, I added, pausing for a moment, "This is just the beginning. Tell your boy, Liam, to enjoy the car while he can. It's probably the last nice thing he'll ever own." I placed a few bills on the table, enough to cover her untouched latte and a generous tip. Then, without another glance, I turned and walked out of the cafe, the sound of her broken sobs fading behind me. I didn't feel the rush of victory I had expected. I just felt empty. But I knew one thing for certain. Next on the list was the lucky guy who thought he'd won the lottery. 5. Dealing with Liam was even simpler than dealing with Sophia. A young man propped up by another man's wife, so high on his sudden good fortune that he'd become reckless, was a man full of weaknesses. I didn't bother with a lawsuit to reclaim the car just yet. That would be part of the divorce proceedings, a slow, tedious process. I wanted something faster, more complete. I wanted to annihilate the foundation of his entire world. I had the P.I. firm continue their deep dive on him. The new information they brought back was exactly what I needed. With his flashy Porsche and a wallet suddenly full of cash, Liam was working hard to cultivate the image of a wealthy heir and a brilliant young entrepreneur. He was a regular at exclusive clubs and had started running with a crowd of spoiled rich kids, throwing money around and basking in their attention. He was also trying to launch a startup, a half-baked, ridiculous idea he was pitching at tech forums and investor meetups. He was using what was left of Sophia's influence and money to package himself as the next big thing. But the most interesting piece of information was this. To fit in with his new friends, Liam had picked up a habit. He was betting on sports, underground, illegal games. It started small, but it was becoming more and more frequent. Perfect. A plan formed in my mind. I had one of my most trusted associates, a man with a clean record and a talent for acting, create a new identity. We'll call him Mr. Vance. Older, sophisticated, with the easy confidence of old money, Vance was an angel investor from the West Coast, scouting for promising tech startups in Boston. He coincidentally met Liam at a startup forum. Vance expressed immense interest in Liam's absurd business plan, praising his vision and drive. He called him a diamond in the rough. He took Liam to more exclusive private clubs, introducing him to a curated circle of influential contacts, all of them actors on my payroll. They fed Liam's ego, fueling his ambition and his vanity. Liam was ecstatic. He thought he'd found his golden ticket, the mentor who would launch him into the stratosphere. He quickly dropped his guard, treating Vance not as a potential investor, but as a close friend. The time was right. Vance arranged a private, high-stakes poker game. The atmosphere was electric, the whiskey flowed freely. Egged on by Vance and his friends with phrases like, "You gotta have guts to get ahead," and "It's just a friendly game," Liam started betting big. At first, his luck was incredible. The chips piled up in front of him. He felt invincible. Then, on a subtle cue from Vance, the tide turned. In one night, he lost everything. Not just the cash in his pocket, but also the tens of thousands Vance had loaned him to keep him in the game. Desperate to win it all back, fueled by whiskey and adrenaline, he signed an IOU for $80,000. The loan shark was, of course, one of my guys. He played the part perfectly, cold, menacing, and direct. Pay up now, or they'd start taking collateral, a finger or two perhaps. Liam sobered up instantly. His face was ashen, his designer shirt soaked with cold sweat. $80,000, he didn't have it. The Porsche was tied up, and he couldn't sell it immediately. He couldn't call his working-class parents, and he certainly couldn't call Sophia, who was now incommunicado and facing her own crisis. Panicked and cornered, he turned to the only person he thought he could trust, Mr. Vance. He begged his friend to intervene, to reason with the loan shark. Vance put on a masterful performance, arguing fiercely on Liam's behalf. He returned with a grim face and a solution. The loan shark, out of respect for Vance, was willing to forgive the debt. But there was one condition. Liam had to write a full confession. Every detail of how his relationship with Professor Sophia Hayes began, how he received the car and other expensive gifts, how she funneled research funds to him. Everything. He had to write it all down, sign it, and provide a thumbprint. The loan shark opposed reason. "I can't stand seeing scum like that corrupting our schools. Consider the story payback for the debt." Liam knew it was a setup. He knew who was likely behind it. But he had no choice. The physical threat was real, and Vance was at his side, gravely explaining that this was his only way out. To save his own skin, he would have to sacrifice Sophia completely. He signed it. He even recorded a video confession on a phone, reiterating the key points of his written statement. That signed confession, along with the video, was anonymously delivered to the university's Board of Trustees, the dean's office, and the local education authorities. The details were so specific, the timeline so clear, and the amounts so precise that they were impossible to deny. Simultaneously, anonymous tips about Liam's academic fraud, plagiarized thesis work, illegal gambling activities, and massive debts flooded the inboxes of every senior member of his department. The university's response was swift and brutal. Sophia was immediately suspended pending a full investigation. With a mountain of evidence against her, she was facing not only termination, but also potential criminal charges for embezzlement of university funds. Her decades-long career was over. Her name was toxic. Liam fared even worse. The university convened an emergency academic council and voted to rescind his master's degree, citing moral turpitude and gross violations of the university's code of conduct. His diploma was now worthless. His startup dream was a public joke, and he was a pariah among the very people he had tried so desperately to impress. And the $80,000 debt? After Vance and his crew disappeared, a new set of very real collectors came calling. Unable to stay in the city, Liam fled like a cornered animal, disappearing completely. I heard a rumor he ended up somewhere in Southeast Asia, trying to outrun his problems.as for the blue Porsche. It was repossessed by the collector shortly after, a tainted asset from a source that had run dry. The final divorce decree was placed in front of Sophia. She had no fight left in her. The facts were clear, her fault was undeniable, and the evidence was absolute. She walked away with nothing. No property, no savings, no investments. Just her personal belongings. The law was on my side. In fact, my lawyers advised me I could sue her for the money she had squandered, but I declined. It wasn't necessary. The day we signed the papers, she looked 10 years older. She wore a plain gray coat and no makeup. The polished, elegant professor was gone, replaced by a tired, broken woman. When she picked up the pen, her hand was shaking so badly she could barely hold it. She looked up at me, her eyes a swirling mess of regret, hatred, and despair. "Ethan," she whispered, is this really it? Is there no other way?" I said nothing. My silence was the only answer she needed. The last flicker of hope died in her eyes. With a trembling hand, she scrawled her name on the signature line. It was over. End.